In March 1992, Dallas was experiencing one of the largest unsolved cargo thefts in Texas history. What started as a routine shipping operation at the port of Dallas would spiral into a mystery decades. The theft involved $4.0 million worth that baffled investigators for nearly 3 of electronic components destined for manufacturing plants across the Southwest. But this wasn't your typical smash-and-grab operation. This was methodical, calculated, and executed with precision that suggested inside knowledge. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. 23-year-old James Morrison worked as a shipping coordinator for Apex Freight Solutions, a mid-sized logistics company that handled high-value cargo transfers between major ports and inland distribution centers. James had been with the company for 18, promoted to his current position. Colleagues months, starting as a warehouse assistant before being described him as reliable and detail-oriented, someone who took pride in ensuring shipments reached their destinations on schedule. The company operated out of a sprawling facility near the Trinity River, processing hundreds of containers weekly. James typically arrived at 6 in the morning, reviewing shipping manifests and coordinating with truck drivers, port authorities, and receiving facilities. His supervisor, Frank Delacroix, had worked in freight for over 20 years and trusted James with increasingly complex assignments. On March 15th, James was assigned to oversee the equipment. The cargo originated from AD 40471, a 40-foot unit transfer of container APX manufacturing facility in South Korea, and had clear containing advanced computer processors, circuit boards, and telecommunications by rail to Dallas. The funneled customs in Los Angeles before being transport, where the components would be integrated into computer systems for destination, was a technology assembly plant in Austin documentation, and coordination with local law enforcement forward value exceeded $4 million, making it one of the had handled. Standard protocol required additional highest-value shipments James the highway transport portion. James complete corporate clients. The containers document security measures, including GPS tracking, sealed all preliminary checks, verifying serial numbers, conducting visual inspections, and confirming that security seals remained intact. At approximately 10:30 that morning, James met with the assigned transport driver, Miguel Santos, who operated an independent trucking company contracted relationship with the company, having completed dozens of similar runs by Apex Freight. Miguel had an established without incident. His truck and trailer were equipped with tracking systems, and he carried proper documentation for the high-value cargo. The loading process proceeded normally. James supervised as warehouse personnel used forklifts to position the container onto Miguel's trailer. All paperwork was completed, including bills of lading, customs declarations, and insurance certificates. Miguel was scheduled to depart by 11:15, allowing adequate time to reach Austin before the receiving facility closed at 4 in the afternoon. However, 20 minutes after the scheduled departure time, James received a call from the Austin facility. Their system showed no GPS signal from the transport vehicle. Initial attempts to contact Miguel by radio and cellular phone were unsuccessful. James immediately notified Frank Delacroix, who initiated emergency protocols. By noon, Apex Freight had contacted the Dallas Police Department and the Texas Department of Public Safety. The truck's last known GPS coordinates placed it on Interstate 35, approximately 40 miles south of Dallas. A search operation was launched, involving state troopers, local sheriff departments, and aviation units. The investigation revealed troubling details. Miguel Santos had not returned to his registered address, and attempts to locate him through known associates proved fruitless. His trucking company, registered as Santos Transport LLC, existed only on paper. The business address led to a vacant office space that had been rented under false identification. Bank records showed the company account had been opened 3 weeks prior with minimal deposits. More concerning was the discovery that Miguel's commercial driver's license contained fraudulent information. The photograph matched the individual who collected the container, but the identity belonged to a different person entirely. Background checks revealed that the real Miguel Santos lived in El Paso and himself at the center of an expanding had never worked in commercial transportation. James found investigation. Detectives questioned him extensively about his interactions with the imposter, his knowledge of security procedures, and any unusual circumstances surrounding the shipment. James cooperated fully, providing detailed accounts of his communications with the fake Miguel and describing standard operating procedures at Apex Freight. Investigators examined whether James had been targeted specifically or if the theft involved broader inside knowledge. His financial records were scrutinized for any unexplained deposits or transactions. Phone records were analyzed to identify potential connections to criminal organizations. Surveillance footage from the facility was reviewed for misses or suspicious activity. The scope by frame, searching for a comple of the investigation, expanded assecation of the operation authorities recognized the sophist. The perpetrators had obtained detailed shipping schedules, security protocols, and documentation requirements. They had created a convincing false identity, established a legitimate-appearing business entity, and executed the theft during a narrow window of opportunity when the container was most vulnerable. Federal agencies joined the investigation when it became apparent that the theft involved interstate commerce and potentially international criminal networks. The FBI's Cargo Theft Task Force took primary responsibility, working alongside local and state authorities. Customs officials examined whether the theft was connected to broader smuggling operations or organized crime activities. James continued working at Apex Freight, but the atmosphere had changed dramatically. Enhanced security measures were implemented, including additional background checks for all contract drivers and real-time monitoring of high-value shipments. James felt the weight of suspicion from colleagues and management. Despite being cleared of direct involvement, the financial impact on Apex Freight was severe. Insurance companies launched their own investigations before processing claims, creating cash flow problems that threatened the company's operations. Several major clients terminated contracts, citing security concerns. Within 6 months, Apex Freight was forced to lay off 30% of its workforce and scale back operations significantly. For James, the theft represented a professional and personal crisis. His reputation in the logistics industry was damaged by association with the incident. Job prospects diminished as potential employers viewed him as a security risk. The stress affected his relationships and his confidence in his chosen career path. Months passed without significant leads. The truck and trailer were eventually located in a remote area of East Texas, stripped of identifying features and abandoned. The container was missing, along with its entire contents. Forensic examination revealed that the vehicle had been professionally cleaned, eliminating most physical evidence that might have led to the perpetrators. The case remained active, but gradually received less attention as other investigations demanded resources. James occasionally received calls from detectives following up on new leads, but none materialized into substantial progress. The theft became another unsolved case in law enforcement files, though the dollar amount kept it from being completely forgotten. James eventually found employment with a smaller freight company, accepting a lower position and reduced salary. He married his longtime girlfriend and started a family, but the Dallas theft continued to cast a shadow over his life. He wondered whether the perpetrators had been caught for other crimes, whether they had successfully laundered the stolen goods, and whether he would ever learn the complete truth about what happened that March morning in industry adapted to new 1992. The shipping security challenges, implementing technologies and procedures designed to prevent similar thefts. But for those directly affected, including James, the incident served as a reminder of how quickly professional and personal circumstances could change due to criminal activity beyond their control. Nearly 3 decades would pass before new evidence emerged that would finally shed light on the sophisticated criminal operation that had targeted container APXD-4471 and forever changed the lives of everyone connected to that fateful march. Day in Dallas. In August 2021, construction crews working on a highway expansion project near Mesquite, Texas, encountered something unexpected. While excavating for a new overpass foundation, heavy machinery struck what appeared to be a buried shipping container approximately 15 feet below ground level. The container's placement seemed deliberate, hidden beneath layers of compacted soil and debris that suggested it had been concealed for decades. The construction foreman, recognizing the unusual nature of the discovery, contacted local authorities before proceeding. Dallas County Sheriff's deputies arrived within hours, establishing a perimeter around the excavation site. The container bore weathered markings that were barely visible after years underground, but investigators managed to identify partial serial numbers that would prove significant. Detective Sarah Chen, now heading the cold case unit that had inherited the 1992 Apex Freight investigation, received notification of the discovery. The timing seemed remarkable. Chen had recently been reviewing unsolved cargo thefts from the early 90s as part of a departmental initiative to apply modern forensic techniques to older cases. The buried container's dimensions matched those reported missing nearly 30 years earlier. Specialized equipment was brought in to carefully extract the container without damaging potential evidence. The process took 2 days, with forensic technicians documenting every aspect of the excavation. Soil samples were collected to determine how long the container had been buried, while metal detectors swept the surrounding area for additional hidden items. When the container was finally lifted from its underground location, investigators immediately noticed that its locking mechanism had been modified. Professional cutting tools had been used to create an access point while preserving the container's structural integrity. This level of precision reinforced theories that the original theft had involved individuals with specialized knowledge of cargo handling and security systems. The container was transported to a secure facility where it could be opened under controlled conditions. Detective Chen contacted James Morrison, now 52 years old, and working as a logistics manager for a regional shipping company in Houston. The phone call came as a shock. James had spent decades wondering whether the truth would ever emerge about the theft that had derailed his early career. James drove to Dallas the following morning, accompanied by his wife and adult daughter, who had never fully understood the weight their father carried from those events in 1992. As he entered the secure facility where the container awaited examination, James felt a mixture of anticipation and dread about what might be revealed. The opening process was methodical. Bolt cutters were used to remove the modified locking mechanism while photographers documented each step. Detective Chen explained to James that whatever they found inside could potentially provide answers about the criminal network responsible for the theft, even if decades had passed since the crime occurred. As the container doors swung open, investigators were met with an unexpected sight. Rather than being empty, as many had expected after nearly 30 years, the container held numerous plastic storage bins arranged in precise rows. Each bin was labeled with dates and numerical codes written in permanent marker. The organization suggested someone had used the buried container as a long-term storage facility. The first bin opened contained bundles of currency wrapped in plastic sheeting. The bills showed signs of age, but remained in remarkable condition due to the protective wrapping and stable underground environment. Preliminary counts suggested the bin held approximately $200,000 in various from the early 1990s. Additional bins revealed similar contents, though denominations, primarily 20s and 100s, some contained items that appeared unrelated to the original Apex freight theft. Jewelry, rare coins, and small electronic devices filled, uncovered, not just evidenced several containers. Detective Chen realized they hay from the 1992 case, but potentially a cache used by a criminal organization for multiple operations over many years. James examined the electronics components that matched the original shipping manifest. Circuit stamps from 1992, conferred repeatedly over the years, with from container APXD4471 Ming, these were likely items stolen boards, and computer processors bore manufacturer. One bin contained documents that would prove crucial to items suggested the burial site had been accessed. However, the presence of newer additional stolen goods being added to the cache. Handwritten records detailed multiple thefts spanning 03. Names, dates, and dollar understanding the scope of the criminal operation. Had operated across Texas, that the fake Miguel Santos was suggesting the group had operated of an organized theft ring that specialized in high-value cargo. The ring, from 1991 through 2, actually Roberto Valdez, a member rather than opportunistic thieves. The documents reveal amounts were meticulously documented, Oklahoma and Louisiana, targeting as a sophisticated criminal enterprise shipments during vulnerable with dozens of the success rate was remarkable. More disturbing was evidence F's totaling millions of dollars in stolen merchandise transfer periods. There that the group had cultivated informants within shipping companies throughout the region. Employee names and payment amounts were recorded, indicating a network of inside sources who provided information about valuable shipments, security procedures, and transportation schedules. James felt relief that his name did not appear in these records, finally confirming his innocence to investigators and himself. Detective Chen explained that many of the individuals named in the documents had died or disappeared over the intervening years. However, several names matched persons of interest in other unsolved cases, potentially allowing investigators to close multiple cold cases with this single discovery. The investigation revealed that the burial site had been abandoned sometime around 2003, based on the most recent dates found in the documentation. This timing coincided with increased federal enforcement efforts following the September 11th attacks, when cargo security became a national priority and traditional criminal operations became more difficult to sustain. Forensic accounting and valuing the recoverients began the complex process of cataloged items. Preliminary estimates suggested the cache contained over $1.2 million in cash and goods, though determining the original sources of each item would require extensive investigation. Insurance companies that had paid claims related to the various thefts were notified about the recovery. James found closure in ways he had not expected. The discovery proved definitively that he had been an innocent victim of a sophisticated criminal enterprise. His former employer, Apex Freight, had closed years earlier, but insurance records confirmed that the company's claims had been legitimate. The revelation validated James's consistent assertions of innocence and removed the shadow of suspicion that had followed him for 3 decades. The investigation also revealed how the criminal organization had selected their targets. James's reputation for reliability and attention to detail had actually made him an ideal unwitting accomplice. The criminals knew that his thorough documentation and professional conduct would deflect suspicion while providing them with the detailed information they needed to execute their thefts successfully. The recovery of container APXD4471 brought an end to one of Dallas's most perplexing unsolved cases. but it also opened new investigations into criminal networks that had operated across multiple states for over a decade. James Morrison finally received the vindication he had sought for nearly 30 years. His name cleared and his professional reputation restored. The sophisticated theft ring's downfall came not through traditional detective work, but through the relentless march of urban development that eventually uncovered their buried secrets. For the families affected by these crimes, the discovery provided answers and closure that many had never expected to receive. The case serves as a reminder that even the most carefully planned criminal enterprises leave traces, and sometimes justice arrives decades later through the most unexpected circumstances.